strike last week. In a statement today, KLSCAH said it stands in solidarity with Nathaniel Tan and called on the government, led by Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin, to revise the National Recovery Plan. And of course, the demands were made by Nathaniel Tan to talk about the items like revising the COVID-19 recovery plan that has been repeatedly amended and criticized upon immediately. This is a statement by KLSCAH. Last week, activist Nathaniel Tan started a personal hunger strike at Taman Tun, Dr. Ismail in Kuala Lumpur. Nathaniel said that he did it after he felt furious over the government's handling of the pandemic and its treatment of its frontliners. He posted his 5 demands on the government on Facebook, and the civil group said it agrees with the demands listed by Nathaniel Tan. It's not just this particular group. There's a lot of other groups that is also urging the government to start to rethink about the National Recovery Plan, such as the handling over the recovery plans, making decisions to experts rather than to the parliamentary members. Items like a purchase of 500 million worth of medical equipment has to be met to treat COVID-19 patients, while allowing doctors to choose the necessary equipment without going through heavy bureaucratic procedures. Also to allow frontliners to disclose and reveal their work efforts in combating COVID-19 in a fair and transparent manner without being subjected to punishment for whistleblowing. These are just some of the items that have been mentioned. Of course, Nathaniel Tan is safe. He has ended his hunger strike, but the call has been called up by his fellow compatriots that is now still going through that whole process. So let's bring back our guest, Normah Goh, an independent journalist right now, also doing his postgraduate study in policy affairs. Normah, Nathaniel is a friend of ours. There's a full disclaimer right there. And Nat has been on this show for a few times. And when he made this announcement, I was quite shocked because, first of all, it's abrupt. Second of all, it hasn't been done for quite a while, hunger strikes. But we know that sometimes hunger strikes can be compelling enough. And of course, it can be quite important for us to attract the kind of attention that garners from a hunger strike. You met him in Taman Tun very recently. Talk to us through the process of meeting him and trying to understand his plight right now.
The first day when I met him, the first thing I thought, like, he's so thin, he's going through hunger strike, and it's going to be very detrimental to his health. And plus, with the current COVID-19 going on, the risk of getting infection, although a person is fully vaccinated, there's still a risk of getting infection, although he's in an open area. And TTDI is generally quite clean, but when I met him, the sort of resolve that he had was, the first day when I met him there was a huge frustration of looking at what's going on in the country, and we all feel very helpless. It's one of the little things when Nat really wanted to do, and I don't think even myself would be able to do it. To go on a hunger strike, to actually sleep on the sidewalks. Calling on the government to make some of these changes to make sure that this message go through. And a few days on, I talked to him. I went back and on the second day, when the police came, I was like, whoa, quite a number of the policemen came, quite a dozen of them, and then all the way from the Brickfields crime department came and checked on him. But generally, the police officers were nice. They were asking him and said, please try to take something. They were worried about his health and stuff like that. Then when
they weren't punitive, so to speak. They weren't trying to go out there to get him,
not at all. I was quite surprised that they were very, very nice, and even reminded us, those who were worried about Nat's condition on day 2 and day 3, and they said that don't kumpul banyak-banyak and all that. It was quite okay. And then after that, day 3 onwards, we did not see any police officers. But we do know that the police officers were always around in that area and checking on him. That's where I really appreciate the police on checking on Nat once in a while. Well, when it comes to day 4, when I checked back on him, things got bad on him because we didn't expect that Nat had quite a bad sunburn on his face, his arms, and his shin. His shin was really badly sunburn as well, and he started to look really weak. And then today, his hunger strike ended and passed on to another friend, Gurpreet Singh, who's continuing the hunger strike and making the same demands somewhere in Petaling Jaya.
All right. Of course, the reason or the reasons why individuals are taking matters into their own hands is because they're trying their best to try to solve a very problematic issue right now. And of course, none of us are actually in full control of the public health systems, for instance. None of us are in control of the livelihoods of the millions of Malaysians out here. But the issue is dire. And one thing that caught my attention, of course, was the plight of the doctors or the frontliners making their cases being heard, but they are currently being sanctioned by the government, by the health ministry. The Hartal doctor issue is still unresolved. In fact, the health minister, Datuk Sri Arambaba, said that it will take up to 2 years for the contract doctors to be resolved. This is unacceptable by any means, actually. And the Hartal doctors organizers are trying to say that, we'll walk out again if need be. And of course, things like this needs to be resolved very quickly. It can't be resolved because of the political quagmire that the country is going through. Norman, what do you think has to be done when it comes to solving this very long-standing issue of not just lives, but also livelihood?
Again, it's been a lot of missed opportunities of many times, including last year during the parliamentary sitting itself. I think giving that 2-year period, it's really ridiculous. It's not that you cannot do away with all the bureaucracies and red tapes. We've seen a lot of other countries practicing in the same Westminster system. They can actually break all the bureaucracies and do the right thing. When Tan Sri Noor Hisham shared that there's a need to amend the Pensions Act, as well as the EPF and all that, why can't we, the lawmakers, as well as policymakers in the government, actually put forth a whole package, discuss and sit down with the contract doctors to settle this? They have not reached out to the contract doctors, they have not spoken to them. What is going on? This is going to be a one-way kind of decision, a top-down decision, while those in the government still talking about whole of government and whole society approach. Are they paying a lip service? This is going to be affecting not just the contract doctors, because there are also healthcare professionals like dentists, as well as pharmacists, even nurses, are on contract services. And COVID is going to be, like what you mentioned earlier, COVID is going to be here, it's going to be endemic, it's going to be here even up to 2024. Things like that, we are going to expect to have more allocation for the public health care. If our public health care is not taken care of, without healthcare professionals on the ground, especially in our primary healthcare, how are we supposed to get prepared in the case of another wave of another pandemic? It will just paralyze the whole country if we do not take action now. And the golden opportunity is actually the sitting in September, as well as the end year sitting for the budget. This is a golden opportunity. You can do it now and put things into place for next year, and make sure that we have sufficient healthcare professionals in our front line.
We'll go for a short break. When we come back, we'll talk about politics, about the two parliamentary sittings that you mentioned earlier. But for now, we'll go for a short break. When we come back, we'll discuss more on Malaysia's politics. All right, we have Normah Goh, independent journalist, joining us. The topic of the day is, of course, 13 letters by UMNO MPs addressed to the Yang di-Pertuan Agong, stating their decision to withdraw support to the Prime Minister Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin were publicly revealed today. The letters, affirmed by lawyer Sandra Segaran, dated between July 29th and August the 3rd, shows that they were posted on UMNO's official website. It lists down all the signatories of the SD, including from Pekan, which is Datuk Sri Najib Tun Razak, Pengerang, Bagan Dato', and many more. UMNO's official website also shared 2 letters signed by UMNO's president, Datuk Sri Zahid Hamidi. The first, dated July 30th, saw Zahid seeking an audience with the Agong to present the first batch of letters signed by the UMNO MPs. Of course, Zahid said that the position taken by the UMNO MPs were in accordance with the party's leadership's decision on July 7th. The second letter, dated August the 4th, saw Zahid providing a full list of the 14 MPs and his assurance to the Agong that none of the MPs who signed the first batch of letters had second thoughts. Revealing of these letters had cast further doubts on Tan Sri Muhyiddin's claim that he still commands the majority. And of course, Norman, this is new news for us, but it's not surprising news as well. The remainder of the UMNO MPs, led by Ismail Sabri, is still supporting Perikatan Nasional. My question is that why is it that UMNO still captivates our minds, even though many of us voted them out? That's just a strange feeling of deja vu that I get, that even if you vote them out, you're still going to get them in your face. Very, very strange right now. I don't know. Norman, what do you think?
I think one of the key things people have forgotten is that UMNO is an establishment party. They have very strong grassroots, particularly in the Malay heartlands. Although the 2018 general election has actually broken the party dominance, or what we call as the dominance within the Malay heartlands. Right now, the dominance of the Malay heartlands are now split into at least three parts. One from UMNO, one from Bersatu, as well as PAS, and you have another group from PH. But right now, what we are seeing is that UMNO is trying to set a dominance, re-establish and re-exert its dominance as the Parti Melayu, pilihan Parti Melayu, or becomes the number one choice of the Malay party. But then again, we know that the gravity of power usually shifts towards who holds the prime ministership at the moment. The current Prime Minister, Muhyiddin Yassin from Bersatu, currently holds the power on the pinnacle, and he has the upper hand of the cards of offering, making offers, making deals, as well as, trying to push some of the support over. That's where the power is. But then again, when it comes to election time, it will also show whether the sentiment whether it will continue to shift towards Bersatu, or we will stay with UMNO. That begs the question. But one thing for sure, that UMNO has a very strong grassroots, and the current situation where the leadership in UMNO is split into two, one with the court cluster and the warlords as well, and the other side with the those who are siding the Perikatan Nasional. So once the court cluster has been ousted, the another group will just fill in the space, and at the end of the day, they will still challenge Bersatu for the top position in the country, because at the end of the day, you cannot have two tigers in the same mountain.
Yeah, it's also a conversation that we need to have to discuss right now, untangle. There are three big events, the way I see it, in the parliamentary session. The first is the vote of confidence that is announced by the PM to be done in September. We don't know if that's going to be done, actually. The second is, of course, the announcement of the 12th Malaysia plan, also scheduled in September. And in October, Budget 2022, which is going to be a monumental task, considering that Malaysia is saddled with debts. But we're having to dish out a lot of funds to make it work for Malaysia coming out of the pandemic. So all these three is never going to be easy for the government of the day. Do you feel that Tan Sri Muhyiddin has, a lot to deal with in the near term?
I think, whether he will survive that, we'll have to see this coming September. Right now, he has actually bought himself some time, up to about a month. That's actually, when it comes to politics, that's actually a very, very long time. So whatever SDs or the declarations that they have currently, things may change after 24 hours. We've seen how one moment Noh Omar stands behind Zaid Hamidi. The next thing, you see his signature on Ismail Sabri's press conference. Can we really trust the statutory declaration? I think that's no longer the point of contention. I think at the end of the day, we still have to see the vote of confidence in September, in early September. That will be the point. And then on is that, how are we, should Prime Minister Muhyiddin Yassin loses the vote of confidence, what will happen next? So we are likely to see another hang again of whether the government is going to form, whether there is going to move to form a unity government next. Because if we do not have such government, we do not have government in place, what will going to happen with the 12th Malaysia plan, like what I mentioned, 12th Malaysia plan, as well as Budget 2022.
Yeah.
So it hangs by the thread, and it will just repeat its cycle again. So at the end of the day, the king will have to, we actually have to decide. So I would expect that the king might probably call an emergency meeting with his royal brothers, with the Conference of Rulers, prior to the sitting in September.
All right, that's something that we all have to keep an eye out for. That was Normah Goh, independent journalist as well as postgraduate student in public policy. But for now, that's it for Notepad for this evening. Have a good week ahead. My name is Ibrahim. Catch you in the next one.